Hey class, today we're going to 3D model the Gonggi stone that has been popularized by the recent Squid Game series, and this has some really basic features and basic geometry that would be a good lesson in how to do some things in OnShape. So let's start with a new document, and we'll call it Gonggi stone with triangle. I am going to start by creating a sketch on my top plane, and let's press N to go normal and press P to remove the planes. And this is very interesting. It wants me to have a base shape of a star. Well, there's not a feature for drawing a star, but my closest thing I can use is a polygon. And I'm going to choose this circumscribed polygon, but I'm using it really just to space the 7 points of my star. So I'm going to turn on my construction lines so that it doesn't actually draw lines. It draws these kind of guidelines for me. So my 7-pointed star, I want it to be centered with the origin. So I'm going to wait till I see my little implied constraint that I'm vertical with the origin, and then I'm going to click. But this is only a 6-sided shape, so I'm going to pull away from the center until it says 7, so I can have a 7-sided shape. I'm going to make another one, but this time I'm going to pull down because I want those 7 sides, but I want the point to be alternating with my outer circle. Okay, what this gives me is it gives me points that I can alternate with to make a star. So now I don't need it to be a construction anymore. I'm going to use just my straight line, and I'm going to connect all the vertices of those 2 polygons that I just drew. It does take some time, and you do need to watch that you are seeing that little coincident constraint. It's implied when it shows up next to your cursor, but that's faster than you having to go back in and explicitly add those constraints later. And so I want to test to make sure that all of my points made it. It's a good sign that this shaded in. That tells me that that all the points are connected. But if I move my inner circle or my outer circle, all those points should go with it, which is also a good sign. So now I want it to look more like the Gonggi stone, so I am going to round my corners with a tool called fillet. I'm going to grab that fillet, and I'm going to click on each one of the points, and it's going to allow me to treat all of this as one fillet, so that after I've clicked all those points, they're all orange, I can grab on this arrow and figure out how rounded do I want that. Well, I don't need it to be really rounded, so I can set the value by dragging this arrow, or when I click, because it's asking me to click my left mouse, it will expect me to enter in a number, and I don't need it quite so rounded, so I'm just going to put a radius of, let's say 1.5. Okay. I'm going to do this again with the fillet, but I'm going to do it with the inside corners. And the inside corners, I will want a little bit more curvature there, but let's select all 7 points first, and then I can grab this just to kind of eyeball how round I want it, but I'm going to place it right about there, and then let's just type in the number 4. Oh, whoops, I need to click my left mouse first, but I want this to be about 4. Okay, so it doesn't look like a Gonggi stone because I haven't dimensioned the outside. This is really, really big. And so if I were to measure my stone, I probably wouldn't measure it to this point because I don't have access to this point right here. I have access to like that rounded corner, which I can do. I can dimension from the center and not to my polygon, but to that rounded edge. And I really want that to be pretty small, so maybe about 8. Okay, that did some weird things, so let's start by just manually resizing it a little bit. Okay. Let's take that down to 10 and then just kind of size that down with it. I'm going to move my little labels so that I can zoom in much easier. Okay. I think this needs to be even smaller. There we go. So now it's starting to look like the shape I want, with this being 10. And then at this point, I do want to dimension. Oops, sorry, I meant to do this. I want to dimension from here to the center, and that is something I want to be about 20. So it looks like my other number is way too high. So let's actually just give it 14. And this probably needs to be more like 8. Okay, it's not letting me do that, so let's see if I can just get rid of this one and change this one to 10. Okay, now I can go back and dimension. Let's just dimension the radius of that inner circle, which I want to be 16. Okay, if you don't like the roundedness of your points, you can make some changes. So I want this to be a little bit more pointy, so I'm going to change that to 1. And I want this to be a little bit more rounded, so I'm going to change that to 5. Okay, that's pretty close to what I need, and you're welcome to play around with yours until it looks the way you want. But that's going to be that star shape on the outside base, and that means I can take that and I can extrude it, and that base is going to need to be 12 millimeters high. So once I accept that extrude, I should see that star base. I do want to change one thing though, because I'm going to need a platform on both sides of this, and it's going to be easier for me to do that if I change this to symmetric. That way my sketch plane is right in the middle of that shape. The next shape is super simple. I just need a platform in the middle of this, so I'm going to add another sketch, and it's going to be on that top plane that's centered in the middle of that shape. And it just needs to be a cylinder, so I'm going to take my center point circle and I'm going to draw a circle that's not quite to the edge. So let's dimension that at 15, and when I extrude that, it'll create a cylinder for me, but I don't want it to stick out on one side like this, so I'm going to make it symmetric, and I just want it to be 15.5 high. And that'll make it stick out just enough from my 12mm base. Okay, that's the cylinder. The next step is just putting a slight shaving off just a corner of this cylinder so it looks more like a platform. And I'm going to use a tool called chamfer, and I'm going to select both the top and the bottom. That was way too much. I don't want 5mm cut off, so I'm going to change this to 1 on both sides. And it didn't go all the way down to the base, so I'm going to change one of these. Oh, wrong one. I'm going to change this distance 2 to 2, so that way it looks more like a platform. Okay, I'm almost there. My last step is to put that triangle on this surface. And unlike my other sketches that chose one of the default planes, this last sketch I'm going to put on the actual platform. And now that I'm on that surface, I'm just going to rotate it to be right side up. I'm going to create a triangle using my circumscribed polygon. It'll start off as a hexagon, but I'm going to pull into my triangle, into my polygon to make it a triangle. And then I am going to create an offset to this. That is way too big. I just need to change that offset distance to 1 and then accept 1mm. I'm going to round the corners on that. 4 is way too big of a radius, so I'm going to change that to 0.5. Okay, now I have a rounded corner, but it's still a little bit too big, so I'm going to dimension from my original triangle to be 9 instead of over 10. Okay, this is going to create that little bump out that I need so I can paint that triangle, and I'm going to come and extrude that just 0.5mm. Okay, so on the other side, depending on what I want to do, I don't really have to write this, I don't really have to redraw this same sketch. I can reuse the existing one, and then I can do an extrude, but this time, instead of extruding from this surface, I'm going to change it to start on an entity, and that entity is going to be this side. And then instead of it extruding this way, I'm going to extrude it the opposite way, just 0.5. Okay, so now I have that triangle on both sides. And if I shift 7, I can see my entire shape. And that one's ready to export and print.